any conversation about backlog. Backlog itself as a term is one that has got different definitions across different industries, but actually also within the same industry. So within the North Sea oil and gas, multiple operators have got different definitions. So often when you talk about reducing or managing backlog, it doesn't mean the same thing to different people, and it's really important to be clear. So the definition we're choosing to use for this is the OUK definition that can be gained from their guidance. A couple of reasons for using it. So one of them is, I guess, we wrote it on their behalf, so they asked us to come and help them write it. So we're a little bit biased in my next statement, which is, I think it's a really good definition to be clear on how work's being managed and executed and what your backlog actually is. So it provides really good guidance. It's clear and simple and tries to sweep away a lot of the noise that can exist around the topic. So in defining backlog, there's a couple of things to define. The first is really the concept of what it is, and then there's the definition or the calculation about how you derive it. And this is really this slide I want to talk about the first point, which is what backlog's there to represent. So as it says here, and this is from the guidance, backlog represents a deviation from organisational intent. And that's a really important point that then we'll come back to frequently, but I just want to labour a little bit here. Backlog is how an organisation, as a demonstration of how an organisation itself is not executing the work that it itself decided to do. And it's a really important point to keep in mind. So whilst there's legislative obligations, if I can say it properly, the maintenance that an organisation decides to do, it itself has said it has to do in order to meet its minimum business objectives. So it designs its maintenance strategies themselves to make sure the equipment is reliable and available to meet the objectives that it has. And for corrective maintenance, the organisation themselves will assess it and say, this is when we have to do this work by in order to avoid a negative consequence. So it's really, if you have backlog, an organisation isn't doing what it itself says it will do. So a really important point to stick on, because if you're not delivering in your intent to meet your objectives, it's entirely reasonable to change that intent to ensure you're still able to achieve that objective in a different way. And particularly when you're talking about your legislative obligation to make sure you've got a safe operation or a safe asset, it's not optional. You have to make sure that you're able to deliver